Welcome to today's deep dive. We are really glad you're joining us for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
Today, we're looking at a pretty fascinating stack of sources. It's a mix of industry articles, operational research, some case studies.
Really detailed stuff.
Right, and it's all detailing the massive operational complexities that security and facilities management companies face, specifically when they go through periods of rapid expansion.
Which is, it's a critical topic because if you look at the trajectory of successful companies in this space, growth is almost always the primary objective.
Of course it is.
But these sources highlight a very dark side to that growth if it isn't managed correctly.
Yeah, so our mission for the next few minutes is to unpack exactly how these organizations can maintain actual control using a highly strategic approach called digital workflow optimization.
Right.
So let's look at the scenario we're dealing with here, because if you are operating in this space, this is going to be incredibly relatable for you.
Oh, without a doubt.
Imagine you're running a security or facilities management firm. You've been grinding for years. Finally, you win a ton of new contracts.
The dream.
Exactly, the ultimate business dream. You are suddenly deploying more personnel across dozens of new sites. It's exactly what you've been working toward. And here's the hook. What actually happens when your company's frontline headcount doubles almost overnight, but your underlying operational systems are completely stuck in the past?
That is the exact paradox we're exploring today. What stands out in these sources isn't just the fact that companies use outdated tech, it's how perfectly good, highly profitable companies get trapped by their own success.
Right.
Rapid growth almost always outpaces governance. In the source material we're reviewing, there's a very clear conflict that emerges when an organization scales up quickly.
Because manual methods that were perfectly manageable for a small, tight-knit team.
They suddenly become a massive systemic liability.
Right, and by manual methods, we are talking about the things that actually run the day-to-day business, the duct tape of operations.
Exactly. When you just add more people and more sites without upgrading the underlying systems, you create this incredibly dangerous gap. It's a gap between what headquarters thinks is happening across their sites and what is actually happening on the ground.
It creates a complete illusion of control.
Completely.
In the first part of our sources, they refer to this as the paradox of scaling. Organizations evolve in their overall size, their footprint, their revenue, but their daily frontline activities completely fail to evolve at the same pace. They get caught in what is essentially a growth trap.
And we really need to look at the specific frontline activities that are most at risk here. The sources highlight 4 critical areas: patrol inspections, incident reporting, equipment checks, and maintenance records.
The core stuff.
The absolute core. If you strip everything else away, these are the foundational tasks of any security or facilities operation. If these fail, the core service you are providing to your client fails.
But let me push back a bit here, because I think a lot of people listening might be thinking, hey, we use a mix of paper forms and messaging apps and we're doing just fine.
Sure, yeah.
Why is that such a problem? If a WhatsApp group for the frontline team works, it's quick, it's free, and literally everyone knows how to use it, why fix what isn't technically broken?
It's a fair question. And honestly, it's exactly why companies delay fixing it. A small company starts out, and that WhatsApp group makes perfect sense.
Right.
But the real vulnerability of paper or fragmented messaging isn't just that a piece of paper gets lost or that a message gets buried in a chat thread somewhere. The true vulnerability is that the data is entirely unstructured.
Unstructured, meaning you can't actually do anything with it once it's submitted.
Precisely. You can't run analytics on a stack of handwritten HVAC maintenance logs to predict which unit will fail next.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. You can't easily aggregate hazard reports from 50 different WhatsApp threads to see if there is a systemic safety issue across your portfolio.
It's just noise.
Exactly. As the company scales to 10 sites, then 50 sites, that same manual workaround creates severe operational blind spots. Management can no longer physically oversee every location, so they are relying on these fragmented streams of data. The blind spots just multiply with every new contract they sign.
Which leads us perfectly into uncovering the hidden chaos that the sources talk about, because they outline 7 very specific operational challenges that stem directly from these manual blind spots.
Yeah, and instead of just listing them out,
let's look at how they actually trigger a domino effect in the real world. because it almost always starts with challenge number one, which is inconsistent reporting across different sites.
Right, because when you rely on manual processes, every site manager or team lead starts to develop their own subjective way of doing things.
Right. Human nature.
Site A might have a manager who is meticulous, right? Filling out a detailed paper log every single hour. Meanwhile, over at Site B, the manager just sends a quick thumbs up emoji in the group chat at the end of the shift.
Just a thumbs up.
Yeah, there is absolutely no standardization.
And that inconsistency directly leads to our next massive blind spot.
Yeah.
Fragmented communication between the frontline teams and management.
Definitely.
When you are using a mix of phone calls, texts, emails, paper logs, important updates inevitably fall through the cracks. There is no single source of truth.
None.
Which triggers the third, and I'd argue arguably most dangerous challenge, delayed incident reporting.
Let's paint a picture of what that actually looks like. Imagine a minor leak in a commercial building. A facilities worker spots it on a Friday evening. They follow their protocol. They write it down in the physical paper logbook at the security desk.
Okay.
But that logbook isn't reviewed by the facilities manager until Monday morning.
Oof. That is not just a delay. That is thousands of dollars in water damage.
Oh, yeah.
A furious client and potentially a lost contract.
Exactly. And the worker did their job. They reported it, but the system failed them.
Right.
Now, let's take that same paper logbook and look at challenge number 4. Inevitable human errors caused by manual data entry.
Oh, this is the worst.
Let's say that leak didn't happen and it was just a routine week of maintenance checks. At the end of the month, you have administrative staff at headquarters trying to decipher hundreds of pages of handwritten notes.
I'm trying to read someone else's handwriting.
Trying to retype them into a central database for billing or client reporting.
It is data entry purgatory. And mistakes are guaranteed to happen. Numbers get flipped, critical details get summarized poorly to save time, or illegible things are just skipped entirely.
Just skipped, yeah. Which naturally leads us to challenge number 5, missing compliance documentation. In these industries, proving that you did the work is just as important as doing the work.
Absolutely.
If an equipment check was performed, but the paper record was misplaced, or the admin skipped it because they couldn't read the handwriting, then in the eyes of a regulatory auditor,
that check never happened.
Never happened.
If you're listening to this, you have probably lived through the nightmare of audit week, frantically chasing down a site manager for a compliance log from 6 months ago.
So stressful.
The sources frame this as challenge number 6, the immense difficulty of auditing operations. Imagine trying to conduct an internal audit by physically driving to 5 different sites to collect binders full of paper logs.
It is a massive drain on resources.
Yeah.
And when you look at all these dominoes falling, the inconsistency, the delays, the errors, the missing documents, it culminates in the final challenge.
Challenge number 7.
A total lack of operational visibility for headquarters. The people making the big decisions are essentially flying blind. They are waiting for end-of-month summaries instead of seeing what is happening right now.
But this raises an important question. If it's this bad, how do companies survive as long as they do with these 7 massive operational leaks?
Because of heroics. Middle management works 80-hour weeks to manually patch the holes.
Oh, yeah.
But the sources highlight a terrifying reality here. These operational gaps usually remain completely hidden from executive leadership. Management lives in a comfortable illusion of control.
Right. They look at the top-line revenue growth. They see the new contracts coming in.
And they assume the operational engine is running smoothly.
They don't see the frayed edges until it is too late.
It's a bit like driving a car where the speedometer is broken, but you don't realize it because the engine sounds fine. You think you're going 60 miles an hour, but you're actually doing 90. And the tipping point, the moment the illusion shatters, is when you finally see the flashing police lights in the rearview mirror.
Yes, the tipping point. The sources are very clear about what this looks like, and it is never a gentle realization. The illusion of control shatters because of a serious incident on site, like a major safety breach,
Right.
or a major client raising angry concerns about inconsistent service delivery. Or, and this might be the most stressful one, a regulatory audit that suddenly exposes all those missing compliance records we just talked about.
It's a reactive discovery rather than a proactive one. And by the time the tipping point happens, the damage to the company's reputation or its finances is already done.
So what does this all mean for a company that wants to grow sustainably without hitting that catastrophic tipping point?
Well, the sources introduce a powerful structural solution.
A concept called digital workflow optimization. And they highlight a company called Com360 that specializes in exactly this.
But this is where we need to make a very vital distinction. Digital workflow optimization is not simply about buying software off the shelf.
Right, because I imagine a lot of operators listening right now are thinking, we just bought a new software suite 3 years ago to digitize our forms. Why do we need another one?
Because taking a bad paper process and simply turning it into a bad digital process doesn't solve the underlying problem. If your workflow is broken, handing an employee an iPad so they can type out the exact same inefficient notes just makes the broken process slightly more expensive.
Makes sense.
What Com360 does is not just digitizing paperwork, it's a complete structural redesign of how work is executed and governed.
Let's unpack that structural redesign. The sources break down Com360's approach into 5 clear pillars. They don't just hand over an app and say good luck. They walk the organization through a transition. Pillar 1 is identifying operational inefficiencies.
Which is crucial. Before you write a single line of code or implement any software, you have to look at the ground reality.
Right.
Where are the current bottlenecks? Why does it take 3 days for an incident report to reach the client? You have to audit the chaos first.
Then Pillar 2 is redesigning those frontline workflows. You strip away the unnecessary steps that evolved over years of manual workarounds, and you build a clean, logical path for the employee to follow.
And that leads directly to Pillar 3, which is where the magic really happens. Strengthening operational governance.
Let me stop you there, because earlier I asked why a company couldn't just mandate a strict WhatsApp template. Like, hey team, every time you do a control, send a message in this exact format.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that work? What is the difference between communication and governance?
Okay. Communication relies on human discipline. Governance builds the discipline into the tool itself. If you mandate a WhatsApp template, an exhausted security guard at 3 a.m. might still forget to include a crucial detail, or they might falsify the time they did the patrol. Governance means building rules into the workflow so the process naturally guides or even forces the employee to do things the right way. The app won't let them submit the patrol report unless they physically scan a QR code at the far end of the building, proving they were there.
Ah, okay. The system won't let them fail.
Exactly.
That makes total sense. And that flows right into Pillar 4. Improving reporting consistency. By standardizing these digital inputs with strict governance, headquarters receives the exact same format of structured data, whether it's coming from a tiny site in London or a massive complex in Manchester.
Which sets you up perfectly for Pillar 5, enhancing audit readiness. When every single action is digitally tracked, structured with timestamps, and stored centrally, you are essentially always ready for an audit. You never have to scramble again.
I want to move from the theory into practical territory here. The sources provide 4 specific industry examples of how this looks on the ground before and after this transition. Let's start with security operations.
Okay.
We talked about the archaic nature of a physical logbook at a front desk. A security guard scribbles down a signature and writes 2:00 a.m. to say they did a patrol.
And as we just discussed, there is zero way to verify that entry in real time. If an incident happens at 2:15 a.m., the client is going to ask if that patrol actually happened.
Exactly.
But with the digital workflow alternative, that same security guard is performing patrols across multiple buildings using a structured digital inspection on a mobile device. This workflow is equipped with automatic timestamps, GPS verification to prove their location, and the ability to capture real-time photo evidence of secured doors or potential hazards.
So if a door is found unlocked, they don't just write door unlocked, they take a timestamped photo of it.
Exactly. The governance is built into the tool. It elevates the level of accountability, but it also protects the security guard by providing undeniable proof that they did their job correctly.
Okay, the second example is facilities management. Let's talk about maintenance checks. Under the old system, a technician does a walkthrough of a commercial building, fills out a handwritten form about the condition of several HVAC units, and hands it into the office at the end of the week.
Which triggers that data entry purgatory we mentioned earlier. Administrative staff wasting hours retyping handwritten forms into a computer system, trying to format it into a professional PDF to send to the client.
Right.
The optimized workflow through Com360 completely eliminates that administrative burden. Technicians now use their devices to capture photos of equipment conditions, note the pressure gauges, and complete digital checklists.
And here's the kicker from the sources. The system then automatically generates the service reports.
Yes. The data moves directly from the frontline mobile device to a polished, client-ready, final report without a single person at headquarters needing to retype a word.
That's huge.
It frees up your administrative staff to do actual analytical work instead of just being data transcribers.
It's a massive efficiency gain. Now, the third example is the one we touched on earlier, which probably keeps operations directors awake at night. Compliance and audit.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about the week-long panic of a regulatory inspector showing up. Management tearing apart filing cabinets trying to find a specific fire extinguisher check from last November.
It's a high-stress scenario, and beyond the stress, think about what it signals to the auditor. Frantically searching for documents projects a profound lack of professionalism and control.
Looks terrible.
Contrast that with the COM360 approach. During an inspection, the company can instantly retrieve historical inspection reports, detailed incident records, and maintenance documentation from a single centralized dashboard.
You just search, filter by date and location, and export.
Exactly. It turns a week-long scramble into a 5-minute data retrieval process, and it projects absolute competence to the auditor or the client.
Which brings us to the fourth and final use case, multi-site operations. This is where you see the massive relief for headquarters. If you have 30 different branches across the country, the old manual way meant you only found out about systemic problems after the fact. You were always reacting to fires.
But through digital workflow optimization, management at headquarters can now monitor operational activities across all of those branches in real time. They have a bird's eye dashboard view.
Right.
If a critical maintenance check at a site in Scotland is missed, a red flag appears on the dashboard in London immediately. They can spot a missed patrol inspection, a delayed incident report, or an escalating operational risk before it becomes a full-blown crisis.
Yeah.
They regain the visibility they lost when the company started expanding.
They actually get their hands back on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So we have unpacked the manual problems, the 5 pillars of the solution, and the practical examples. What is the true meaning of optimization here? Because going through all these sources really feels like this is about something much deeper than just working faster or basic efficiency.
It is. If we pull all of this together, workflow optimization is fundamentally about operational governance. It's about establishing and maintaining absolute control over the quality of your service, no matter how large your organization grows.
The sources outline the ultimate outcomes of making this transition. By standardizing inspections, incident reports, maintenance, and inventory tracking across the board, these organizations drastically strengthen their operational discipline.
Right, they build undeniable accountability across all their teams because, as we saw with the GPS and photo evidence, the data doesn't lie.
They achieve complete compliance readiness.
And that crucial management visibility.
And all of that leads to the ultimate goal, true operational scalability.
Because scaling without proper governance isn't actually growth. It is just a magnification of operational chaos.
Yeah.
When you just add more sites and more people to a broken manual system, you aren't building a bigger, stronger business. You are just building a bigger problem.
A bigger liability.
Precisely. You are multiplying your risk with every new contract.
Which brings us to our final summary for you today. The main takeaway from our deep dive into these sources is incredibly clear. Organizations in the security and facilities management sectors that adopt structured digital workflows through strategic partners like COM360 are the ones actively positioning themselves for sustainable, long-term growth.
Absolutely.
They are the ones who can confidently expand their reach, win larger contracts, and increase their headcount, all without sacrificing their safety standards, their consistency, or their accountability to their clients.
They are building an operational foundation that can actually support the weight of their own ambition. They're ensuring that the frontline operations, the actual daily execution of the work, evolves right alongside the expanding footprint of the business.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today as you look closely at your own organization, or even just your own department's daily work. Think about the processes you rely on every single day to get things done. What critical process in your world is currently being held together by the digital equivalent of duct tape?
Like a casual WhatsApp thread or a fragile spreadsheet?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And more importantly, what happens to your operational stability the day that thread finally breaks?
It is a crucial question to ask yourself before the tipping point forces you to answer it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll be back next time to unpack another fascinating set of sources. Until then, keep questioning how things are built.